Hey everyone, welcome back to the ATYL Media Channel. My name's Taylor Kitchen, joined by another fellow creator on the platform, Buddy Pulley. And today we're talking a little bit about safety gear with K1 Racing Gear's very own Jacob Brown. He's the Director of Motorsports and Marketing for K1 Race Gear. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. It's
Good.
awesome to have you here. And I guess just rolling right into it, coming to a world where you're talking about motorsports safety, I feel like that has to come from a deep love of motorsports. So where does that love come from for you? How did you kind of get into the motorsports scene?
Yeah, no, yeah, and thanks for having me. Yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody in this industry, I don't think anybody's in racing to make money. There's
Right.
very few people that join the motorsports industry to make money. Luckily, I'm on the side where I get paid to do it, and I'm not behind the wheel anymore. I'm semi-retired. I do get behind the wheel about once a year. And it's usually not anything spectacular, but I still enjoy it. So I started racing when I was 5. So many moons ago. I actually one of these helmets, that one right there, was my first ever racing helmet. So cool to have that still. And yeah, I just started. My grandfather and father both were into racing from a young age too. My grandfather going all the way back, to the 50s and going to races. My father grew up going to races, and then in turn, when it was old enough for me to go, I started going. I'm actually the first in my family to actually physically race. Um,
Oh, wow.
but yeah, been going to races literally as long as I can remember. My first race was Bristol with the World of Outlaws when they put dirt on it for the first time in 2000. And so, fortunate to grow up racing. I raced for a long time, doing karts. I've done some BMW endurance stuff. Really nothing on the professional level. It kind of got to a point where my dad said, "Hey, kid, you could we've got you as far as mom and dad can get you. You could pursue a career on the, go to college and pursue a career on the professional side, or we could waste all this money and you're gonna fizzle out in 6 months." So went to college, got a degree, got in on the backside of the industry, and then now kind of worked where we're at now.
I am curious. You said you try to race maybe once a year. Is there a particular event you do once a year, or do you kind of switch it every single season?
It's honestly different. So last year, it started out as a joke, and it was actually kind of funny. Good friends of ours, the Carrick family out in California, we were out there for the Gold Cup Race Champions, Cycleland, the Kyle Larson Showcase. We sponsor as well, where a lot of those guys have gotten their start. Kyle, Brad Sweet, Rico, all those guys. And I jokingly told Blake Carrick, I said, "Hey, get me a cart ready. I'll race when I'm out there." Just joking, right? So I show up and he texts me and he's like, "Hey, when are you coming over for seat fit?" And I said, what do you mean?" And he goes, it literally sends me a picture of a cart that he had built for me. And I was like, "Oh shoot, man, I hadn't brought, these helmets right here are mine too." And I'm like, "I didn't bring a helmet. I don't have a suit. I have nothing." Luckily, we were out there selling. I had my trackside, warehouse rig out there. So dug into my own inventory, got some suits and gloves, and borrowed Blake's helmet. And it was hilarious. Nobody had actually that I've worked with had physically seen me race. So they kind of thought it was a joke. Like they just thought, "Oh, I talk a big game," and ended up first night, drove from the back of the B, transferred into the A, drove like 26th to 5th in the A. And then the next night ended up putting it on the pole for the big race, and drove it straight from the pole to 5th. So, dropped a little anchor on the second night, but it was good. It was a fun time. This year, I'm running a race. It's a 500 lap go-kart race. That's what's right now scheduled. I'm going to do some more outlaw kart races just because we did well last year. So nothing super, I would say competitive, but enough to scratch the itch, so to say.
Yep. So how did you end up getting involved with K1 and overall, like, what's the mission of K1 and their motorsports program as far as the gear side?
Yeah, so I was already in the industry. I was working for Bell Helmets. I was director of motorsports for Bell, and J.R. Tweed, our general manager, had been trying to hire me for a couple of years, and finally the opportunity was right. So I made the switch over to K1 in 2020, and really kind of took, K1 was just starting to get back popular, right? And so jumped over, saw JR's vision, saw the potential, and bought into it. And luckily, here we are. So, have grown super fast. So yeah, that was really kind of my start with K1. At the time we had quite a few guys, but not nearly what we have now. And it certainly helps having Kyle, in our stuff. But really, I think the thing that separates K1 and how we've built this, when you go to a racetrack, you see myself, right? You see JR. You see the guys running the company you could talk to, you can associate with, every guy that we take care of, it's really kind of family. I'm good friends with quite a few of our guys, and that's not because I'm trying to buddy up from a business aspect. Generally, are friends, and I think part of my passion for why I'm on the safety side and why I do what I do is, protecting my friends. I think going back to like when I was at Bell, like safety is an often overlooked side of racing. It's one of those things. It's necessary, but nobody ever really puts the time, energy, and effort into it really on the grassroots level. It's more of a, oh, I have to wear a suit. Oh, I have to wear a helmet, right? Nobody ever really prioritizes it until somebody gets hurt. And the biggest innovation, all the time is, somebody getting hurt. Oh, cool. How do we fix it? Right. And unfortunately, it takes an eye-opening experience to open people's eyes to say, hey, we need to do something. Somebody gets burnt. Somebody, hits their head, gets a concussion. Somebody gets, God forbid, somebody, passes away, which happens in racing. It's part of the sport we all dearly love, and it's a risk that we all take. And so really, I've grown to have a passion for that because I have good friends that race, that have succeeded at that next level, and I'm able to play a small role in that by helping them.
I'm going to talk about some friends maybe for the K1 side in just a second, but I do want to ask you too, like safety, as you alluded to, has evolved in the sport over the past few years. And for nearly 20 years, K1 race gear has been kind of that next level for professional racing gear. How have you seen safety equipment and safety gear for these drivers, not hats, helmets, gloves, things like that? How have you seen those kind of evolve through your time with K1? And what are some things that you're currently working on now that kind of take that to the next level?
Yeah, the cool thing, people always talk about technology in racing, right? We're finding lighter materials, titanium, carbon. You look what everybody was at, steel bodies, and then now we're going to carbon fiber and composites. And just as the actual physical car is evolving, the textiles and everything that we use in suits is constantly evolving as well. We're constantly finding better layups, lighter materials, stronger materials, different knit patterns. So just as much as like the actual physical, rubbers, tires, alternate tires, all of this stuff that you see evolve, we're doing the same thing on the safety side. Actually, these suits behind me here are some of the lightest suits, in the world right now, that are made in our Italian facility, our partners there at Frame. So, with that, it's just constantly evolving, and we do it for a multitude of reasons. One, obviously it looks and feels right. Drivers don't want heavy. You look at back at what suits were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, call it even 20 years ago, right? It's evolved tremendously. Even look, the 60s, 70s, 80s, guys were wearing essentially just cotton overalls. Now we're using, naturally occurring, FR materials. Nothing is fire resistant. Everything will burn at some point, depending on whatever material it is. So what we have to do from a fire safety standard is, protect guys the best we can with the best materials, layering, underwear, because a lot of times guys get burnt with heat transfer, not actually flame itself, where the suit physically gets hot from being in the fire. So we work to constantly evolve those things, and make it lighter. And then at the end of the day, the cool thing about a suit, as you see on the ones behind me, it's just as much of a marketing tool as it is a safety tool. And unfortunately, grassroots level, some guys, key into that. I know a friend that you guys are going to be talking to here soon, Gavin Michelle. Gavin has really capitalized on that, using suits. We have guys that will do 10 to 12 suits a year for different partners. They'll sign a primary sponsor and guarantee them 6 races on their suit. they want to race. It's pictures, it's photos, it's stuff like that. So any more suits, I would say even more over the last 5 years have turned into more of a marketing tool, just as much as they are a safety product.
Absolutely. You mentioned the grassroots level of racing. You guys support, anything from grassroots all the way up to NASCAR, IndyCar. What makes grassroots like the focal point for K1?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I would say the people, really. I mean, everybody racing's such a niche market, right? Everybody and people ask me all the time, like, how do you guys approach marketing in racing? And it's like, well, you have, let's use Valvoline, right? So Valvoline, all three of us drive vehicles. We all have a car that we have to get from point A to point B. Everybody needs oil, right? However, there's very, very few select people that race. Those people that do race, have that it's even smaller in what actual suits they need. So we have to really cater what we do to such a small audience. And so with that, you want to make sure that we can do it and hit it right. And so at the grassroots level, it's making sure that we can get these guys taken care of. Because for me, consumer education is huge. A lot of times at grassroots, these are guys that are working a 9-to-5 job and racing for fun. They're not doing it professionally. They're doing it, they're working at an accounting store shop during the day, and then they're racing the cars tour on the weekend. So, with that, these guys are really having to really look at their budgets. And so, we've coined ourselves as the racers brand of safety gear and apparel. And that's true, even as we continue to grow, because at the end of the day, the grassroots guys are what makes this go around, right? If it wasn't for grassroots racers, there is no IndyCar, there is no NASCAR, right? In the race fans is what continues to drive those. Those guys are just the pinnacle of the sport, the professionals, the most talented, and guys who've achieved to get there. But at the end of the day, the core of racing and the core of our business, and really any racing business, is the grassroots guys. And we've recognized that, we've really capitalized on that, and ensuring that those guys are safe, because those are the guys, I make a lot of suits for Kyle Larson, but at the end of the day, Kyle's a speck on the production map for what we do for everybody else. So, and with that, that's the core of our grassroots guys, because the everyday Joe, like I was saying earlier,
Yeah.
I race a couple times a year. I've got a suit, right? I would consider myself a grassroots guy. So, it's making sure that we can outfit those guys and make them keep them as safe as anybody else. They get the same material that Kyle does. We don't hold anything back. We want people to have the best of the best at all times. But make sure that they have access to the best material as well.
You mentioned working with Gavin, working with Kyle Larson. Just to get a sense of scale, how many suits does K1 Race Gear produce a year, if you have to give a rough estimate?
It's kind of hard to really pinpoint, because it varies so much from a production standpoint. I mean, we're doing thousands upon thousands, each year. Custom suits this year, 2025, we're off to a really good start. We're recording this in May, so off to a really good year. Custom suits flow really well, and then also we kind of have. We're a custom suit business just as much as we are a stock suit business, right? So, we have guys doing custom suits. Custom suits obviously are more expensive. So, coloring, logos, stuff like that. But we sell a huge amount of off-the-rack suits, a bunch of different options. So, I mean, we're making thousands. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but we're deep into the thousands already on suits that we've manufactured this year.
And do you have a favorite, the custom suit that you guys have manufactured ever? Is there one that's stuck out to you over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably narrow it down to a couple, this suit here of Kyle's, is pretty important. It means a lot just because it was the first K1 suit that's ever been in the Indianapolis 500. I live in Indianapolis. I spend most of my month of May at 16th and Georgetown there at IMS. So we're partners with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, great friends. And obviously, in my opinion, the mecca of racing, right? I'm a Hoosier born and bred, so kind of obligated to say that. But I would say that one's super important for us. It was really a lot of time, energy, and effort getting in, growing the brand. Obviously it helps having Kyle wearing K1. If it wasn't for Kyle racing the 500, but that one's important. Like this one here next to me as well. It's a good friend of K1, another long time. He's been here, I would say probably 12, 15 years now on the K1 brand. It's Jack William Miller now running Indy Lights for ATYL Motorsports. So there's a lot, you know, that I have some that mean some to the brand. I have suits that mean a lot to me, of guys that I've sponsored, just friends. Oh, and then there's obviously the suits that look super cool. You know, we've done some cool suits over the years, but I'd say definitely that Kyle's suit at the 500 last year is probably the most meaningful so far to us.
K1, you know, you guys have been innovative in safety. What do you guys see yourselves, or where do you guys see yourselves 5 years down the road? What's the next big thing for you guys?
Yeah, we're continuing to expand, right? And we don't want to. I would still consider us a small company, right? We have a big corporate overhead with our parent company of K1 Speed. So we have a large overhead, but at the end of the day, you know, our core, you know, the Racers brand safety gear and apparel, we don't want to get away from that. Making sure we take care of the grassroots guys, your everyday racers. You know, kind of looking forward, what is my goal? You know, as kind of my task and responsibility is continuing to grow the brand and expand, getting more into that IndyCar, sports car, you know, that side of things. Not really a deep side that we're on. You know, looking obviously more markets that we're not currently in, you know, super deep in, getting deeper into off-road, into drag racing, stuff like that. So just continual expansion. But the thing that we've really focused on is doing it right. There's a lot of brands within the safety space that go out and just, you know, hand out free product left and right. You know, anybody's going to wear something that's free. We want people to trust our product, organically grow it, you know, and want to be in K1 and not just wearing K1 because they got it for free. So it's not really a great business model to give. So you know, we've really taken metered approaches on how we want to grow and do it right, and make sure that things are taken care of, you know, and drivers are taken care of, you know, the best of our ability. So I think you'll see more, you know, K1/Freem. Freem is our sister company based in Italy. So, you know, partners with those guys. So you'll see more and more of that branding, you know, hopefully in the next 5 years. Yeah, I have a personal goal of winning the Indianapolis 500 within the next 5 years. Not me personally. I mean, if I won the Indy 500 in the next 5 years, I would be selling suits for K1. Yeah, I mean, hey, talk about a turn of a career. But K1 as a brand, K1 and Freem, to win the Indy 500. You know, when I first started, I wanted to win the Knoxville Nationals, and we've won it 3 times now. You know, winning the Kings Royal, we've won that Gold Cup. You know, we set these events. You know, we've won a championship in all levels of NASCAR. You know, with a bunch of big races. Still haven't won. Oh, we have won. Excuse me, the Daytona 500 with Ricky Stenhouse. So, you know, I set little personal goals for myself that I want the brand to achieve. Now, I have very little you know, to do in actually winning the goals. You know, I got to outfit the driver, and then they've got to go perform. But being selective on who we do and what we do is cool. So personal goal for me, and I know the company is, you know, is just because Indy means a lot to me, is winning the Indy 500. So hopefully, you know, 5 years from now, we'll circle back, we'll do this again, and we'll have a Borg Warner, you know, in the trophy case, you know, the theoretical trophy case, I guess.
Maybe we'll circle back and do it again in a month. How about that?
Hey, you know, tell you what, if Kyle wins it, which I'll be honest, I think he will, or has a good shot to do it. Indy, I'm a true believer. Indy picks its winner, right? You know, it's all, it's no different than the Daytona 500. Indy's super special, and it takes a lot of skill, luck, and you got to have the absolute perfect day to do it. But yeah, Kyle wins. We'll circle back in a month, and we'll revisit this. We'll clip this little part in, you know, and say, hey, welcome back. So that'd be huge. So,
well, fingers crossed we can see K1 win the Indy 500. Hopefully, maybe this year with Kyle Larson, we will see. But Jacob, thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate all that K1 does to keep these drivers safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for taking the time to highlight safety and what safety is and means. It's a very often overlooked part of our industry, and one that I try to personally educate and make sure the guys are taken care of.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys.